Welcome to GRFX1113. I'm your host, Jared. Today, we're going to be hearing from students as they share with us tales of heroes, legends, folklore, and the worlds that exist in the balance between fact and fiction. This is Project 1, Tall Tales, as told by the students of Multimedia Concepts.
It can be hard to write a story, to find the right music, or finding the right dialogue.
Why is my line, "Has your refrigerator been running?" Who would ever use that in a conversation?
You just want everything to sound like a real conversation. You want readers to be engaged with your story. You want action. Maybe a weird sound effect. But don't be confusing. Every story should have a plot, but if you don't, just tell a story. But always have fun with what you do. Even if your writing is pointless, that doesn't mean you can't go far with it. You just have to settle for online articles, where you can say whatever you want. No matter where you decide to write stories, somebody will read them. That's the good part about the internet and the bad part about writing. Here's 2 more pieces of advice. Don't drag your story out. And most importantly, don't cut your story too.
My name is Aiden Dyer. Tonight, I locked myself in my room. I had to hide away from the loud noises outside, the banging and the screaming. Every time I leave my house, it starts. Sitting in my room, away from the outside, is quiet. It's peaceful for moments, but it's always the door. Why are they always trying to get in? Why don't they realize I need to be left alone? It scares me, but I know I'll always be okay. I said hello to Miss Wendell yesterday, but she just looked at me. There's something they're scared of, something I can't see. It has to be inside them. When I look into others' eyes, I can hear it. There's agony in the eyes, a sickness that needs help. Everyone needs help. I decided to start a conversation, and I think that made her happy. After that, she calmed down, was less frantic, and still. She loved the sun and would lounge under it for hours. I haven't eaten today because I was too busy trying to sleep. It hasn't been calm ever since I made Miss Wendell happy. I feel like I should see her again. In fact, I looked out my window throughout the night and saw her still sitting where we spoke earlier. It's nice to have a friend, someone I know won't leave me. My friends are usually quiet, only visiting me when I want to be left alone. The sun seems so bright today. I want to go outside, but there's too much noise. I can't stand the banging. The door feels like it's getting closer. Why is it always talking when I want to be left alone? I heard sirens ringing and people yelling. The blue door was in front of me, screaming. It wouldn't let me go until it dragged me into the light. I was outside, and the sun looked so beautiful, shining its rare red and blue lights again. I only wish Miss Wendell was still alive to see it.
"What a day for fishing," said my brother Drew as we were walking through 7-inch weeds to get to our favorite pond. My brother, Drew, and I had decided to go fishing for largemouth bass in a local private pond after receiving permission from the owner to do so. There was always a rule in which whoever caught the last fish would get their dinner paid for by the other person. We were both getting ready to throw out our final cast for the day whenever we heard something rustling through the bushes in the far distance. After glancing towards each other, we realized it was not like the sound of a squirrel or another animal moving through the woods. We thought nothing of it and continued to fish instead of investigating the sound. Drew had noticed a splash near the shadiest part of the water. Immediately, he decided to cast towards it, hoping for a free dinner. He then hooked into the bass and moved towards it to make sure that the fish did not break the line, but that's when we were greeted by the owner of the private pond. With no second thought, he backed away after seeing that the owner was carrying and aiming a shotgun towards us. Drew and I had decided to get out of the area as quickly as possible without bothering the owner anymore, and before we knew it, we were running through the 7-inch weeds back to the car. Still to this day, we have never revisited that pond.
I went in the morning. It was like about 10:45 when I went in, so it was a pretty early morning. There wasn't many of us servers out, so we got pretty slammed very fast throughout the morning. There was just a lot of plates dropping, people laughing, talking very loudly, just, kids screaming at the same time. Well, later through that day, evening shift started to come in like right around 3 o'clock, and I still had a single table. My relief was there at 5. I got stuck there until like 6 o'clock because I still had to do some back work. Well, one of our checkers usually is at tables around the bar, and she had a single party table, and he ordered a Yingling. And he drank his Yingling, and he was perfectly fine. And I was in the back just doing some back work, checking up on my one table that I had that was underneath my stuff. And all we hear is screaming. And here comes that one server back, and she's frantic. We all go out, and we just see this guy just screaming about how somebody took his beer off his table, and it was just continuing. Well, 3 of our managers, 1 service manager, 1 regular manager, and our kitchen manager all went out there to see what was all going on. Well, it got to the point that this man got into the kitchen manager's face. And the kitchen manager is like about 6'8". He's extremely tall, very thin, and said that we are all Democrats. You had all these servers just lined up against the wall while watching, trying to keep other children from not seeing this. It continued to just escalate and everything else, and it was bad. Because this dude would not leave. You had the managers trying to pull him out, and it was just bad. We ended up getting him to leave after once he caused a whole scene, just screaming, cussing, yelling at us, slammed our front door, and I'm pretty sure he broke our front door. We all checked up on the server afterwards to see she was okay.
One foggy night, the vegetable man was lurking around the city of Fairmont, West Virginia. He was hungry and looking for food. His favorite food was humans. Unfortunately, there were no humans around since it was only 3 a.m., just cars driving by. But Veggie Man did not want to attack the cars for the risk of getting caught. So, he continued to lurk. But then he found himself on a university campus, Fairmont State University. Suddenly, he heard a gasp coming from behind him. 2 college students, who were just out on a late-night stroll, spotted the Veggie Man. One of the students started to giggle at his hideous appearance, while the other was shaking and taking pictures of the monster in front of him. The flash from the phone hurt the vegetable man's eyes. Then he started to get closer and closer and closer. Then there was a scream, and the two students were never seen again.
Her tears fell down her cheek. She felt nothing as she drove down the empty road in her empty car with her empty hands. She drove in silence, only to hear the occasional clicking of the turn signal which she had on. But which way was she turning? Down the path with the bright city lights that blinded her as she peered, or down the path that was dark and lonely? Unable to make a decision, she decided to turn around. Oncoming headlights headed her way, and suddenly there was a crash. She opened her eyes and faced the sky. The sky was dark, and only the moon shined bright. She, in hesitation, looked around her surroundings. She had wrecked. How? She said, as she continued to look around her. Then, she looked back at the moon, which seemingly looked like it was trying to reach her. How? She said again, but no response. In desperation, she reached out her hand into the sky and felt as if though someone grabbed it. "It's okay, everything's alright," she heard from a distant voice, but who was it?
Adam was growing anxious as he neared the campground. The sun was already beginning to set, and they still had a mile hike through the woods once they arrived. He looked over to his left and saw Taylor was scrunched up in a ball in the passenger seat, sound asleep. Adam knew she wouldn't be much help to setting up the tent or to carrying camping supplies across the trail, so he knew he must hurry once they arrived. As they were finally pulling in, Adam was instantly taken back. They were promised an upscale camping site with facilities at the trailhead, but they weren't treated to much more than an ominous hole into the thick woods. Sunset was in 10 minutes, meaning they had about 25 to complete the hike to their cabin and start a fire. Taylor saw this as nothing but another reason to complain, not realizing the severity of their situation. She was thinking that Adam, whom had grown up in the Appalachian wilderness, could get them out of any situation unharmed. She was wrong. 10 minutes passed, and the sun had disappeared from the horizon. Quickly after, a supernatural wind began to pick up. At first, it was slow and unassuming, but as the light shrank, it became more and more intense. The hike started to seem unending. Neither Adam or Taylor spoke a word and still somehow communicated a deep, overwhelming sense of terror. It was undeniable something was wrong. They came upon a split in the trail, realizing that they hadn't started on the right trail to begin with, leaving them hopelessly lost to be left without any light within minutes. They were soon stuck using only the flashlights on their phones. The wind started back up and in an instant knocking them both down, causing Adam to drop his light. When he looked up, Taylor's light was nowhere to be seen. Adam's light had turned off when it hit the ground, leaving him frantic. He called out for Taylor, but there was nothing. Only a few seconds later, he found his phone and turned his light on. He was startled by Taylor's expressionless face when he turned it on. He asked if she was okay, but she didn't reply. She only stared blankly at him. His light began to flicker, dimming with every pulse. Taylor began to smile. The darker the light got, the brighter her face was. Eventually, it was clear to Adam. Taylor was gone, and he was next.
Hello, and welcome viewers. Today I will be retelling the tale of the day that I saw Cthulhu. Picture it, a lovely vacation in the South Pacific. A cruise-like voyage made its way through the foggy night. My experienced yet alcoholic captain sailed us through the brisk waves with general ease. He retold countless incoherent stories about his time on the high seas. Through his ventures, he ended off with a dark, chilling statement that the location we were sailing across was the home of the legend Cthulhu. That comment went through my ears and down to the pit of my stomach. As time went on, it only seemed natural that the ocean became more and more eerie. This was only exacerbated when the entire ocean seemed to rupture, which in turn made the waves that kept any peace to fade into dead silence. I turned towards the captain with much dismay. This cannot be the end. From this moment, the entire boat shook like something had taken a hold of it from under. As soon as the boat halted, a large figure in the distance decided to emerge from the placid waters. With a shrill shriek, this form made its way towards the boat. There was this telepathic feeling coming from its direction. It only grew stronger once it was right in front of the boat. Once I could catch a full glimpse of the creature, it was easily recognizable as Cthulhu. As I prepared for the worst possible scenario, the primordial being began to speak. The insightful yet eloquent words telepathically spoke was, "Hey, can I pop a deuce in your porcelain throne? I've been prairie dogging it for the past millennia." The captain agreed with the swish of his bottle. Cthulhu went inside, did the business, and left with what could be considered a relieved expression.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and today I'm going to tell the story of how I ruined vacations for my grandma. This evil plan starts in June of 2017. It's the last day of our trip to Kalahari when my cousins and sisters discovered that her master suite with 2 doors could be locked from the outside. At dawn, we plotted her demise by leaving her stranded. We took everything out of her room, making it look like she woke up somewhere else. We took all of her clothes and hung them off the balcony, leaving the granny panties in plain sight. Lastly was her beloved Samsung on her nightstand plugged in that she sleeps facing toward every night. Aside from being dangerous territory, we decided to give her a landline. Around 8 a.m., I heard many missed calls coming from my parents' room and knew doomsday was upon us. Fast forward, it's time to check out, and my grandma's in tears, saying she'll never vacation with us again. This was true for like 2 years, but I really don't blame
As nightfall drew near, I stood before the overgrown abode. It had been rumored a tome I sought for was gathering dust within. The only person who had seen it was an old contractor who had planned to demolish the estate.
I seen it in a room behind the fireplace, but didn't stick around. I heard something inside. Something evil.
At the time, I just thought he needed a vacation. How very wrong I was. The unmarked chamber beyond the destroyed fireplace seemed to consume light that entered, a strange breeze carrying the smell of decay from within. Lighting a match, I stepped inside, finding the gray tome laying upon a podium. Upon opening it to the first page, faint whispers warned all around me. I tried to ignore them, reading further and further. The whispers became a hollow backing to the stomach-churning read before me. I had enough and tried to pull away, to stop reading, but to my abject horror, I could not. The pages turned themselves, each more horrible than the last. They depicted an entity in the stars, watching over Earth, staring directly at me. As the pages turned, the creature drew closer, until its eyes consumed the page. The book slammed shut, and through the rolling thunder, a voice growled just behind me.
I see you.
It's the week of June 24th, 2012. I'm traveling down to South Carolina with my grandma to see my aunt. After spending the week in South Carolina doing various things like going to museums and the zoo, we finally hit the road to come back home to West Virginia on June 28th. We have plans to see the Hatfield and McCoys in Grandview Park near Beckley. My dad had called to inform us that a huge storm was coming our way, and my aunt didn't want to drive through it, so we decided to go ahead and stop in Beckley. When we got to the amphitheater, we informed them that there was a storm coming, but they hadn't received any alerts, nor were they showing any concern. So we were seated for the show, and the power blinked a couple of times and eventually went off. 5 minutes before it was supposed to start, the lady comes out to tell us that it's canceled and we can get rain tickets. She then proceeds to say that a bad storm is going to hit in about 10 minutes and we need to get into our cars immediately. For anyone who hasn't been there, Grandview sits on a ridge on top of a mountain with very old, huge trees along the entrance road. We were among the first out, and the wind and rain began to blow twigs and branches at us from all sides. Small trees and branches were in the road. The man even got out of his car to move a tree so we could get around it, and deer were running for open ground. We finally got out of the park, and mind you, I was 7, so I was terrified, like screaming and crying. We checked to see if any hotels in Beckley had rooms available, but nothing. We waited the storm out and then drove on to Parkersburg. There was no power in Beckley, but power in Charleston, Ripley, and Ravenswood. When we entered Wood County, it was black. There was nothing.
Wilbur had always been a bit of a dreamer, spending his evenings lounging around his small, cluttered apartment, gazing at pictures of celebrity mansions online. One evening, as he was once again scrolling through real estate listings, he received a notification that merely made him drop his phone. It screamed, "Free extravagant mansion." Without thinking twice, Wilbur hit the Buy Now button. As Wilbur stepped into the mansion, he was immediately overwhelmed by its beauty. He marveled at the marble floors, the glittering chandeliers, and the majestic staircase. For a moment, it felt like he had stepped into a Hollywood movie. However, as the days went by, Wilbur noticed strange occurrences. Objects moved on their own, doors creaked open at midnight, and eerie whispers echoed through the hallways. It didn't take long for Wilbur to realize that he was not alone in his new home. Determined to investigate, he settled into the grand bedroom. But just as he was about to drift off to sleep, a ghostly figure appeared at the foot of his bed. It was the former owner, a celebrity whose glory days had long passed. The ghostly owner didn't seem to appreciate Wilbur's presence and was starting to grow angry. Terrified out of his wits, Wilbur fled the mansion in his pajamas, screaming for his life. He didn't stop until he was safely back into his old apartment. As he sat on his familiar, slightly lumpy couch, Wilbur realized he had learned a valuable lesson. Maybe he didn't need a celebrity mansion to be happy after all. His tiny, cozy apartment may not be big or have a grand staircase, but it was ghost-free, and that was something to be truly grateful for.
Growing up in school, there was a kid named Timmy. He used to be a happy and imaginative kid, but fell victim to an easy target for bullies to tease and push around. He always had dreamt of finding a way to escape his so-called never-ending cycle of misery. One day, on his way home from school, he stumbled across a mysterious ancient bracelet hidden on the side of the street. Little did he know, this bracelet held the power to make him invisible. Excited by this newfound power, Timmy began to use his invisibility to get back at his tormentors, slack off in school, and avoid his responsibilities. By doing so, his old, happy, and imaginative self was coming back to the surface. However, Timmy's mischievous actions caught the attention of a powerful sorcerer who decided to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget. The sorcerer trapped Timmy in a never-ending loop of invisibility, unable to return to his normal life. Trapped and desperate to break free, Timmy realized that he'd become just as miserable as before, if not worse. He soon understood that using his power for selfish gain only led to more unhappiness. He was determined to make things right, so Timmy decided to track down the sorcerer and make amends. He learned that true happiness comes from finding fulfillment in his life, standing up for himself, and helping others. Through a series of trials and self-reflection, Timmy finally confronted the sorcerer and convinced him to release him from the never-ending loop. He also promised to use his power responsibly and to understand and help those who are struggling, like the bullies. In the end, Timmy learned that true happiness doesn't come from escaping and avoiding his problems, but rather from standing up and facing his problems head-on and finding purpose in his life.
I once worked for many years at an eating establishment that may rhyme with Bakotel. I worked the closing shift well into the night when the strangest creatures would come through the drive-thru. I became well-versed in the creatures of the night and their need for assorted burritos, tacos, and nachos. Of course, I never imagined meeting Barbara Millicent Roberts. The order started ordinary enough. The headset gave its telltale beep, and I answered cheerfully. Hello, welcome to Bakotel. What can I get started for you today? The sweet woman's voice comes through the speaker and orders a small meal for herself. I tell her the total, and I turn my back from the window to pour her drink. I can hear the car pull up behind me with the sounds of it muffled by the glass. I turn back with her drink in hand. I couldn't immediately pick out many details beyond a shock of ping. I slide the window open with the usual greeting on the tip of my tongue, but the words die there as I meet the eyes of Barbie come to life. Now, this was many years before the movie, and thus I never thought it possible for a doll to come to life. My mouth falls open as I take in everything from her curled blonde bangs and pink dress. Her car was a perfect replica of a Barbie car my sister once owned. A pink decaled body with a purple dashboard. The buttons and dials on the dashboard were even modified to look as if they were nothing more than stickers. My eyes slide to the back seat as a similar flash of blonde catches my eye. I look to see a life-size Barbie doll sitting in a booster seat. It was a perfect replica of the woman in the driver's seat. It was the same hair and dress, even their makeup matched perfectly. I stumble through the remainder of the interaction before I tell Barbie goodnight. She merely smiles and brightly says, "Good night, Ken." Barbie became a regular at Bakotel after that, and would always refer to me as Ken, and always matching the doll in the back seat with the same hair, makeup, and dress. She was just a Barbie girl living in a Barbie world, I suppose.
Nestled in the heart of the countryside lived the Thompsons, a simple and content farm family. Thompsons were known far and wide for their hard work and their warm smiles, and the bountiful harvest they reaped from the land. Their farmhouse stood as a testament to generations of love, laughter, and togetherness. One fateful summer eve, however, tragedy struck. A blazing inferno erupted within the heart of their beloved farmhouse, reducing it to smoldering ruins within minutes. The Thompsons could only watch in disbelief as their memories turned to ashes, their dreams seeming to crumble along with the charred remains. With their home gone, the Thompsons faced an uncertain future. They had no choice but to reach out to family for support. Aunt Mildred, a recluse of sorts, lived on the outskirts of the big city. She was known to be eccentric, but her home was the only refuge they had left. As the Thompsons settled in to Aunt Mildred's eerie mansion, they began noticing strange occurrences. Whispers echoed through the halls, and shadows seemed to dance maniacally in the corners. A sense of darkness settled over the family. Things took a sinister turn. Aunt Mildred had deceived them with the facade of a kind old lady. Now, they would see the demon that she hid inside. Aunt Mildred captured them all and sent them to a place where not one ray of light would shine, and they would never feel anything again.
So many stories.
So many options.
What could I possibly write about? Maybe I could write about a soup.
Soup is good. In fact, soup is great. Nice broth, delicious chicken, nice tasty vegetables.
But what good is writing about a simple soup?
I mean, it could have cheese on it.
No, that doesn't help. What's that supposed to have, even?
There could be more than you think.
Shut it. What about a fantasy? One where it's a mighty and powerful dragon facing off against a pure knight.
What, like so many others, right?
Guys.
Oh, you're just jealous that they are so much more successful with something lame like soup.
Jealous? Why would I be jealous of such mediocre cliches being played at work?
Mediocre cliches?
Guys.
I gotta show you what mediocrity looks like, you impertinent roach.
I had to teach you to appreciate the simpler things in life instead of just going for the big stuff.
Guys! We're not going to solve any of it with all this bickering amongst ourselves. So please, let's just find an answer to the question. What are we going to write?
On one cold Halloween night, there was a little girl and her mom who decided instead of going trick-or-treating, they would spend the evening together baking some Halloween cookies. They mixed up the sugar cookie batter and cut them into Halloween shapes. There were mummies, witches, zombies, bats, and pumpkins. They put them into the oven and set the timer for them to bake. While waiting on the cookies, they decided to watch a scary movie, but out of nowhere, it started to thunder and lightning. The little girl becomes scared and jumped into her mom's arms. The storm was so sudden and fierce that even the mother started to get scared. Then the oven beeps and they both jump. Before they even get the chance to open the door, it creeps open and smoke starts to pour out of it. Out comes a mummy, along with several bats and other creatures. Scary music starts playing, and the mom and daughter run out of the house, and the creatures follow them. Then they started chasing the other people around them, and then they took over the town, and it was ran by creatures.
Yesterday I lost my child. Another day I'm in a bar. Being broke, it really sucks. It does. And the rent feels too damn.
Good morning, residents of Lakeside. You're watching DTTR, your local channel for news and weather. I'm your host, Christy Douglas, and today we have quite the story. A man has disappeared, and not just any man. This was our beloved mayor and friend, Jonathan Klein. Officials say that Jonathan was at home with his wife and 3 children when something shocking happened. The roof over his head splintered, and he began to levitate. According to the eyewitnesses, he was floating somewhere between 12 and 36 inches above the ground. He began to glow with a strange purple haze and began to make a sound that, according to his wife, resembled that of a monkey eating a banana. In addition, there was... Oh, I'm sorry. This just in, Mayor Klein has been found. We have Clara Thorne at the site right now. Over to you, Clara.
Thank you, Christy. Yes, that's right. Mayor Klein has been found outside the building of Lakeside Elementary. He appears normal, except his left dimple has started flashing like an irregular strobe light. Mayor Klein, can we get a statement from you on what happened? Oh, Matt. I'll take that as a no. Oh, this just in. Professor Heath Bloomfield has discovered that Mayor Klein's flashing dimple is using Morse code. Mayor Klein says, "I have come to be the savior of the children." Mayor Klein has begun to move his hands strangely, and the school is starting to glow purple. EMS is waiting just outside, unsure of what to do. The building has now stopped glowing, and the children are coming outside now, all of which are glowing purple. However, the adult staff do not seem to be affected. And now Mayor Klein has just shot upwards into the sky. A call from his wife has just come in. She says he teleported back home. He now seems entirely normal. This seems to be the ending for this strange story today. I'm Clara Thorne, and you've been watching DTTR, your local channel for news and weather.
September was upon us, and all the lumberjacks were enjoying Labor Day with their families. All except Marvin Evergreen. For him, it was just another day filled with the distraction of chopping trees. While Marvin mostly operated as a one-man band, even with his crew, it was still unsafe for a lumberjack to chop solo. He had been told countless times by those he worked with that the forest is a place of mystery and life. You're at the whims of Mother Nature, so it's best to have a team around just in case she gets angry. These warnings were disregarded by Marvin, as much of what Marvin heard was filtered out and quickly replaced by the chopping of trees. So, he continued with his routine, motivated by a thirst for distraction. But the forest had other plans in mind. In a period of aberration, Marvin had slipped in and out of a state of unconsciousness, with an excruciating pain stemming from his head.
He needed help. What else am I supposed to do? Leave him. I can't believe you would help such a destructive creature. Shh, I think I hear something. I think I heard him get up. We need to get out of here.
Confused not only by his condition, but the sound of high-pitched voices, Marvin was finally concerned with something other than the chopping of trees. Finding the source of those voices was his main objective, but why was his head propped up? Evergreen was hoping to answer both questions by trailing the voices that had just scurried off. Off he went, not sure where he would be led. He proceeded cautiously through a bundle of trees that had been chopped and into a denser part of the forest. While light from the opening of the woods slowly faded, he proceeded on with his journey. Normally Marvin would have an axe in hand and an itch for chopping. However, this time Marvin was growing a newfound appreciation for the forest. Rather than seeing the forest as a bunch of trees that needed chopped, he was beginning to see the life that had been hiding within. The sun was finally set, and his search seemed hopeless. Life was out there, but who could have helped him? Was it just a concussion, or was this forest alive? The trees seemed to be breathing and even whistling. The animals were no longer just these furry balls of meat. They had life. They had meaning. Hell, this whole forest had life. Had he just been so preoccupied by his thirst for distraction that he was missing out on the life around him? The beauty of trees swaying with each gust of wind in unison? The innocence and playfulness of the different animals that had made this their home? Simply being in this forest was therapeutic for him. As this urge to chop trees began to diminish, so did his desire to continue his life based around the destruction of such beauty. That Labor Day was ironically the last day of labor for Marvin Evergreen. To combat years of what he would consider a destructive lifestyle, Marvin began using his time to replant trees and to protect forests for those who don't have the voice or stature to. He no longer needed a distraction from life. He had found a passion for nature, and with that, an appreciation for life.
Hey, Mammy, can I ask you something?
Sure, Boopy, real quick, I'm at work. What's up?
Mammy, how are kids made?
Oh, whoa. It's an intense, patient process that's very difficult.
And how?
Well, your daddy Buzz and I started to get Social Security checks 5 years back with a little more free time. Human is as human does, so he made the call. Let's have a baby. First things first, God needs to know your prayers for a baby, so we etched "Give Baby" on a bullet and sent it to him. With good intentions out in the world for you, it was time to start baby making. So, we had to grow this thing called spaceman, and it's basically space debris found on rocks. Easy breezy from there. We just threw you in a special oven. You're basically an alien. That's probably why you look so damn weird.
What the hell?
Ah, booby! Don't curse! I swear you get that shit from your dad. But anyways, when you were done baking, I guess I added a little too much yeast, 'cause you were fat AF. We had a punch, breakthrough, whatever, my oven door to pull you out unconventionally. My oven got patched up first. Then I finally held you for the first time.
Well, I've done that.
Well, I gotta go, Boopy. Enjoy your first day of kindergarten. I'll be here to pick you up at 2. Bye. Mommy loves you, sweetheart.
Boy, love you, Mommy. Okay, guys, so listen to this.
This is a story that my friend Carl told me one day. He insisted that it was 100% true. The night before, Carl woke up in the middle of the night to find himself on the ground of a local forest. He tried to stand up, but found that his body was restrained by vines. Carl looked around and found himself surrounded by forest animals. They talked amongst each other, muttering to themselves. The trio of squirrels, however, gleefully chanted,
"Kill the defiler!"
A giant imposing bear began to read off a lengthy list of crimes against nature that Carl had committed. During this time, Carl began wiggling his body around and managed to shake his trusty pocket lighter loose. He discreetly grabbed it, waiting for a perfect opportunity to strike. Displeased with its defiance, the spirit of the forest herself appeared to turn Carl into compost. Just before his spirit reached him, Carl grabbed his lighter, flicked it on, and tossed it at the forest spirit. She burned up in an instant, and the vines restraining him withered away. However, The forest spirit's fiery demise caused the entire forest to burst into flames. As the animals panicked and tried to flee their burning home, Carl made his escape and fled back home, somehow unscathed. I wasn't sure what to say as it's such a ridiculous story, so I just went home. When I checked the news later that evening, I saw a report saying that the forest had indeed been burnt down.
It was a dark and stormy night. Wait, no, that's super cliche. How about the night was stormy and dark? Yeah, that's good. And there was a group of friends camping in the woods.
Ethan, what are you doing?
I'm recording my story for Multimedia Concepts.
Well, stop it and come see this. There's somebody outside the back door.
Now for reference, we have a fence in the backyard, so someone would have had to jump the fence to...
Dude, stop narrating.
My bad. And as they crept down the hallway towards the back door, Ethan's heart began to race.
Seriously, cut it out.
Right, sorry, my bad. As Ethan's fear built, so too his excitement at the idea his story might write itself. As the two friends approached the back door, they saw a figure, a man in a dark hoodie with his head down, face hidden from their sight. Suddenly, the man lunged at the door. Face against the glass, he began to say, "Wake up, Ethan. Wake up. Wake up!" I jolt awake in a padded white room. Well, I guess I don't have to do my homework assignment.
In the rugged wilderness of northern Canada, where the pine forest stretched for miles and the lakes hid secrets beneath their icy depths, lived a daring trapper named Jasper Spector. Jasper was famous for his tales, but none rivaled the chilling night he crossed paths with a tall, dark figure deep in the northern woods. Jasper was leading his sled dogs through snow-covered forest trails on a bitterly cold winter's eve when he noticed a dark figure off in the distance. The shadow-covered, dark form materialized on the brink of a frozen lake locally known as Mystery Lake. Jasper was overcome with curiosity and urged his hounds forward. As he approached, the figure remained still, shrouded in creepy aura. Its features remained hidden beneath the heavy cloak, but its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. The figure beckoned Jasper to the frozen lake. Undeterred by the biting cold, Jasper followed the stranger onto the ice. The world seemed to blur around them as they ventured farther into the heart of the mysterious lake. Weeks turned into months, and the folks in the nearby settlements mourned the absence of Jasper Spector, the fearless trapper. Yet Jasper's legend lived on, transcending reality. Some claimed he had discovered a hidden world beneath the icy surface of the lake, while others believed he now guarded the forest's most ancient secret.
Experience I've ever seen. So about 2 years ago, during high school break, I decided that I wanted a story that I could tell for the rest of my life. A couple weeks went by and I was talking to a guy named Al. He was this guy that my sister was going to go hike the Transcontinental Divide with, and he was living at my parents' house. My mom wanted to meet him and see what he was like before she allowed my sister to go halfway across the United States to go hike with this dude. So he's staying with us for about a month or so at this point in his van. We played a lot of chess and strategy games together, and he's pretty fun to talk to. Well, during one of these games, which I obviously won, I looked up on my phone any big events that were happening, or, any astronomical things. And it turns out that there was a major meteor shower that was happening 2 days from when I looked it up. So we talked about going on this hike, and we planned to go see it. We were going to go at the top of my parents' farm, and the day finally comes by, and we pack our stuff, pack some food, and eventually start this hike. My parents' farm has a massive mountain to get up. The hike alone was hard enough to do, but then we had to practically climb to get to the top of it. Well, we got to the top and started watching for any meteors to come by, but none were coming. And this happened sat out there for about 20 minutes, something like that. Just waiting, we saw a couple, but then this massive meteor came down. It was like the size of the moon at the time. And you could see it. I turned to him and I said, "Hey, look at this." And we still had time to see it. It was so slow, big, and you could see chunks of it coming off. It was so close. And the trail behind it was just this yellow, orange, and vibrant stream of light just coming off this collapsing rock. I could still see it to this day, just it slowly getting smaller and smaller and chipping up until it just disappeared out of nowhere. This was a 1 in a million chance, and I'm glad it was well used on me.
Donkey, the all-star NBA player we all know and love today. He ruled the league from 2004 to 2011. But what's the backstory on Donkey? How did he get here? And how did he become the best player the league has seen in the past 3 decades? Today, we're going to be looking at the backstory of Donkey. Before he was on the Celtics, playing alongside multi-platinum recording artist Future, and dunking and defending his way to 3 championship titles, he was a simple donkey. He was the last of 4 brothers, and he grew up on a farm. But his parents always forgot about him or treated him like trash because he was the youngest and they were just tired and didn't care about him. All he wanted his whole life was to be special. Then one day, his owner auctioned him off, and he went away to a lab and got experimented on. Eventually, he was transformed into a mutant donkey and became the all-star player we know and love today. After that, he went away to college, started playing in the league, but he was insane. He automatically went to the NBA and got his first-round draft in the Celtics. Donkey was unstoppable. He finally felt special and loved. Everyone was saying he was the GOAT. He said, "No, I'm a donkey." But it wasn't all love. His family still didn't approve. He went back to the farm to show them what he had done, what he had accomplished, and they said, "Why are you hanging with the humans?" They didn't approve of his career, and that crushed his heart. That's all Donkey ever wanted, was to be approved by his family.
And that does it on today's episode. I want to thank all the students for their hard work in writing, recording, editing, and producing their own stories. After listening today, I hope the next time that you hear something that sounds too good to be true, you ask yourself, is it the truth or is it just another tall tale? My name is Jared Tadlock, professor for GRFX1113 Multimedia Concepts. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.